right. T, all right, think. R, review. A, attention. C, concentrate. And K, keep up. Okay. All right. So does anyone remember, can anyone answer this question? How can being an active listener help you in life? Who can remember?
It could save your life.
Okay, yes, it could save your life. What else?
It can help you in the workplace.
Okay, it can help you in the workplace, or it definitely can. 100%. Okay, what else?
It could help you with college.
Yes, it can help when you go on, because guess what? When you go to court, I know you guys have often heard that, you know, by and large, lecturers are not gonna baby you, and that's true. Like a lecturer, a professor at college level, yeah, they want you to pass their course, right? Everyone wants you to pass their course, but they're not gonna give you a disproportionate amount of attention or of their attention or their time. So you have to make sure that, and you're an adult at that point, so it's your job to ensure that you are doing your part, that you are listening to what's being explained in class, that you are listening and taking the notes you need to take. All right? And even on the job, listening is crucial depending on what type of job you have. You work in a restaurant, you have to be a good listener. If you're not listening to what the customer says or what the customers say, and you don't bring the right order, or you have to come back and a couple of times and, sorry, what was your order again? How does that look? Is that the kind of service that you think people want?
No, sir.
I don't want that kind of service, because that makes me feel like I'm not important. And the customer is very important, right? So listening is a must. Okay. All right. So we're gonna go over the paper 2 again, and I'm gonna pull up my screen. As a matter of fact, what I'll do now is share my screen, and I'll share my screen, and we will take it from there. Just give me one moment. Okay. All right, Mr. Tucson, can you see my screen? You can see it now?
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh, clicked the wrong thing. Shoot. Oh boy. Yep. No surprise there. Crashed. All right, guys, 1 second. Let me get back to the slide that I want to be at. All right, come on, don't crash. Okay, so there we go. All right, we established this already. Okay, so paper 2, as a reminder, is the listening comprehension paper. All right, this will be the first paper you said, yada yada. It is marked out of 30. But that is the weighted score. The raw score is 15%. All right. Paper 1 is worth 40% raw, and paper 3 is worth 45. Now, who can remember the types of questions that will meet you when you sit this paper? Based on the passages you hear. Based on the passage you hear, what type of questions can you expect?
Compare and contrast.
Oh, definitely. Like they love to. I remember, I think in 2019 or 2018, they did donkeys, right? And like they contrasted donkeys with horses. And then you had to then, they had like a table set up, donkeys on one side and horses on another. And then you had to, using the details you heard in the recording, talk about how donkeys differ from horses, right? Like, for example, and then you had to compare, and you had to make sure that you compared them categorically, okay? And what do I mean by that, right? Like they talked about like the fact that a donkey has a long tail with a little with stubby hair at the end, whereas a horse has a short tail with long hair. Okay, like stuff like that. So you'd have to compare the tail to contrast a donkey's tail with a horse's tail, a donkey's size with a horse's size, a donkey's color with a donkey's coat or fur with a horse's coat or fur. Okay, things like that. All right. Yes. What's another type of question you could expect to see?
Technique and support.
Oh, who was that, Mr. Tucson? You saw who that was?
I think it's is it Shania?
Yeah. I was thinking of Shania. All right. Good job, Shania. Yes. And that one comes every year. At the end of the recording, there's always a technique question almost. All right. Anyone else remember another type of question that may come up here?
They might ask you to complete a sequence.
They would. I don't know if it'd be complete a sequence, but yes, you would be required to maybe sequence something.
Yeah, sequence, not completed.
Yes. All right. In a particular order, the order that they want you to, or you could just be asked to list information and in no particular order. Okay. It's more common for them to just, like, for example, in 2020, they had a question about, we did a passage about raccoons, right? And one of the questions was, why don't raccoons don't make good pets? Or why do raccoons not make good pets, right? And you have to kind of list what the passage said, like they're nocturnal, they're frisky and they breed a lot, they will destroy your home, they destroy crops, or why they shouldn't be around people. Like there's a greater chance of them being killed in traffic accidents, stuff like. So you just had to list that information, right? You didn't have to list it in any order. It was just about getting that information out there. All right, so let's keep going. All right, so boom, compare and contrast, identify tones used by the speaker or moods created by the speaker, because remember, mood is how you feel based on what you hear. You may be asked to identify, this one I didn't have this here yesterday, on Tuesday. Identify/describe a speaker's personality traits with sophisticated adjectives. You may be asked to do that. List/sequence information. And not only that, you may have to identify, because what they tend to do is they write more recently, they'll have like a grid. I don't think I have a copy of the paper that I can get quickly, but they give you a grid and they'll have like 6 character traits, right? And you will have to tick whether the character trait is correct, and then you would have to give support from the passage below the table. All right. So if you say that Jessica was caring, you say yes. Then you have to cite from your notes, the notes you took from the past, from what you heard, based on what you heard, how Jessica is caring. You'll sequencing information, yes. You'll also have to definitely identify techniques. All right. Just going over the tips again. Ensure that you listen to the title of the passage. Okay. There are 2 sections. We're going to look at them before we go. All right. Part 1 is the note section. Part 2 is the question section. Okay. You'll know it's this question section because the point values will be in brackets, like I said on Tuesday. You will use the notes you made in part 1 to answer the questions in part 2. Ensure that you read your instructions and questions very carefully. Like, I cannot emphasize that enough, guys, because what happens, where students lose points is because they don't read the question properly. All right. And like someone said, I don't know if that was I don't remember if that was Aaliyah or Shania or Deborah. You have to show up on time. All right. So we need you guys here tomorrow on time. Okay. Yes. We'll have like a brief, maybe a little brief lesson about stuff we discussed today and Tuesday at the beginning, but other than that, we're going to jump right into it. Okay? So you have to be ready. So make sure you have a pen and a pencil, because some of you may want to make your notes on your rough paper in pencil. I don't know. I would say use a pen for both. If you have folder sheets, I would recommend you bring them. If you don't, I can provide some. All right, and I'm only speaking for me. I can't speak for my colleagues. All right, I can provide to the students that I have folder sheets to the students I have. Okay, so guys, what I'm going to show you now is an example of a listening comprehension passage. This is from 2014. All right, can you guys see? Mr. Tucson, can you see it yet? All right, this still looks a little pixelated on my end. Okay, well, that's clear now. Okay, guys, now this is, all right, let's look at the cover. Do not open this booklet until you are told to do so. Write your school number, candidate number, surname, initials, and initials on the spaces provided in the booklet, on the booklet. Now, they're talking about school number and candidate number, like at the top right here where you see my cursor, my mouse cursor moving. But you don't have to do that, all right, because you don't have your candidate numbers and stuff yet. Notice that you get 1 hour and 15 minutes for this exam usually. That's, I think, 30 minutes to listen, and then you're usually given 45 minutes to answer. All right. Candidates usually finish well before that 45 minutes is up, though. All right. The recording will be played twice and only twice. So you can't ask Mr. Tucson or Mrs. Toot or Mrs. Dennis or me tomorrow, Mr. Walkie, and you playing that a 3rd time? No. Okay? During the first playing, you simply listen. Do not look at the note section. You won't be able to look at the note section because I will be controlling that. All right? Or the questions, because I will be controlling that. The teachers will be controlling your access to what you see. So you're simply listening, and that's where the keeping track comes in. You're thinking about what you're hearing. You're listening to what the person reading the instructions will also tell you what the passage is about. So once you hear what the passage is about, then you listen out for things related to what the passage is speaking about, or whatever relates to what the overall point of the passage is. All right, or the overall idea of it. After the first playing, so when the first recording is done, you'll be instructed, or it'll be projected on the board, okay? And you'll see this. You see what I have right now? This thing about Carolyn's reaction to a recent illness. This is part 1 that I was telling you about. So this is a page from the note section. So after the first playing, you will be looking at this to make notes, okay? And see, it kind of gives you the direction you need to ensure that you can answer the questions later on. Okay? During the second play and after the first playing, you have 3 minutes to make notes. Okay?
I got these listening notes from Miss Williamson when she was here. So I say, I go make copies so I share with everyone. And then these different listening papers, this Aunt Rosie.
Okay.
That's the one, 2000. I forget what year this is. Rosie's Takeaway, I think, or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I think I remember that.
Yeah.
All right. So you'll have, after the first playing, you'll have 3 minutes to make notes. All right. And then you'll be able to open the booklet and you'll see this on the screen, on the board. Okay. And you'll have the opportunity to make notes here. Okay. During the second playing, you can make notes as you listen. And then after the second playing for 3 minutes, you can make additional notes, but then you have to stop after the second period of 3 minutes. Okay, so let's look at it. Okay, part 1. You've just heard a recording of 2 young people who are having a discussion about seafood. Make some detailed notes on the 9 points listed below. Remember that you will need these notes in the second part of the test. Therefore, make them as full and accurate as you can. All right? Your notes on the recording. Okay? 1, Carolyn's reaction to a recent illness. Mark and Carolyn's recent accomplishments. Benefits of eating seafood. Effects of seafood poisoning. What Mark finds attractive about a woman. So after the first playing, you'll see these, and you will have to try and make notes based on these points. Okay? So you have to be listening carefully. Now, after the when the second playing begins, you'll be able to look at these and make your notes at the same time. Okay? Now let's look at part 2. Now, part 2, if you're looking, all right, look at the first question in part 2. It said, let's look at the instruction first. It says, write your answers to the following questions. Base your answers on the notes you took when you listened to the recording in part 1. What was Carolyn most concerned about when she was ill? Keep that in mind. What was Carolyn most concerned about when she was ill? Now let's go back to the note section. The very first point. Carolyn's reaction to a recent illness. Do you guys see a parallel there? Do you see a relationship there between the first point in the note section and the actual first question?
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's go back now to, well, I hope everyone else saw it. Let's look at number 2 here. It says, why are Mark and Carolyn having a celebratory dinner? 2 points. So let's go back to the second point in the note section. Mark and Carolyn's recent accomplishments. So, all right, Mark and Carolyn's recent accomplishments. And second question is asking, why are Mark and Carolyn having a celebratory dinner? So do you guys see a parallel or connection between point 2 in the note section and question 2 in part 2?
Yes, sir.
All right, so the notes you make in part 1, okay, will help you answer the questions in part 2. So the note section is very helpful in that way, right? Because why are Mark and Carolyn having a celebratory dinner? Point 2 is asking you to write down their accomplishments. So obviously they're having a dinner to celebrate their specific accomplishments. Okay? Give 2 specific health benefits of eating seafood. And the third question is benefits of eating, the third point in the note section in part 1, benefits of eating seafood. You guys see the connection there?
Yes, sir.
Okay? I mean, I only have one person answering, but I'm assuming she speaks for everybody. Okay? But guys, it's not hard. Okay? And the note section, because see, it would have been harder if you had to listen and make notes without the note section to guide you. All right? I feel like it would have been much harder. But since they give you these notes to kind of, these note section with these points to kind of guide you, all right, it makes things a lot simpler, at least in my opinion. Okay, I don't know if you guys agree or not. But let's look at the rest of the questions. Question 4, seafood poisoning can have both a temporary and lifelong effect on some survivors. Name 2 temporary effects of seafood poisoning. This is where you just list, all right, these 2 effects, all right? Name 2 permanent effects of seafood poisoning. That's another 2 points. Describe the type of female that Mark probably likes to date. 6, explain Mark's statement about catch of the day at some restaurants. 6 part 2. What tone of voice does Mark use when he makes a statement? 7. Explain 3 specific ways fresh fish differs from old fish. Okay, now this is where you would have to contrast information. All right. Now you could write it in a paragraph, or you could make a table and you could put fresh fish on one side, old fish on another, and you could write their differences down. Number 8, Mark and Carolyn mentioned many safety measures that should be taken to avoid seafood poisoning. Identify 6 things they mentioned that should be done to prevent seafood poisoning. So you would list those 6 things that you hear for 6 points. And you also get 6 points for number 7 by identifying 3 specific differences between fresh fish and old fish. And lastly, we come to the last question. Sometimes this question is worth 6 marks. Sometimes it's worth 4 marks. Identify 2 persuasive methods used in this recording to encourage listeners to make wise decisions about buying and preparing seafood. Place your answers in the chart below, supporting them with the details from the recording. So obviously you would have had to have listened to this passage to answer this question. All right. But notice that you would give techniques like humor, facts, statistics, comparison, contrast, listing information. All right. And so on and so forth. Okay. So guys, this is basically paper 2 in a nutshell. You will usually have 8 to 9 questions, as you can see here. Part 2 is where your questions are. Part 1 is where your notes are to be made. Does anyone have any questions about paper 2 before we leave? Because we're almost out of time. Anyone have any questions or comments?
Whatever you need help or assistance with, just be able to help you.
Anybody?
Let me go on to the other. Let me look. I'm going to look at the hang on right now.
Okay, let me ask another question. Do you guys feel like you'll be ready to do this listening tomorrow? Do you feel like you have an idea of what is expected of you now?
Yes, sir.
You can answer in the chat thank you. You can answer in the chat if you don't want to. Okay? So please, guys, but if you have any questions, please let me know now. I want to make sure that I broke it down in a way that was clear to you guys, because I don't want anyone who is in class today, because I know people are going to come tomorrow and they're going to be lost because they didn't come to class or they didn't check out the YouTube channel, because I'm going to upload Tuesday's lesson as well as yesterday's lesson and today's lesson on the YouTube channel. Okay? So guys, just remember, the note section is for your notes only. Okay? The questions, right, and the question part 2 is where the questions are. So don't mix those 2 up. Okay? Also keep in mind the types of questions that you'll have to do. Okay? And just from looking at that passage alone, we saw different types. We saw comparison, contrast. We saw listing. All right. We saw the technique question. Okay. So we will stop here. Everybody. So tomorrow, just come in. Do the best that you can do. That's all we can ask of you. All right.